Morning, everyone. Hello, please take your seats if you haven't already. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the 4th annual Shape Your Cape Summit. Can I get a big round of applause? Make sure everyone's awake this morning. All right. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm Lauren Barker. I'm the CEO of Cape Cod Young Professionals, and I'm so happy to welcome you on behalf of the CCYP staff, Board of Directors, and our wonderful Shape Your Cape Summit Steering Committee. If you are a board member or a committee member of CCYP, can you please stand and be recognized? There's some there. Wonderful. This event would not be possible without the tireless work of our volunteers. We're a staff of 2 at CCYP, and we rely so heavily on the support of our volunteers as well as our incredible donors that make this event possible. So I want to thank all the volunteers, all the donors and supporters that contribute to the summit. We have a fantastic program for you today. I am so thrilled and proud and not mic'd up anymore. Hello. Test. There we go. As I was saying, very proud to present this exciting day filled with cutting-edge discussion, action-oriented takeaways, and a spotlight on some of the amazing work that is already happening right here on Cape Cod. We have, in our planning process for this year, used your feedback from previous summits to really incorporate the question of what's next after the summit. So when you leave here today, how do you keep that momentum going? And that's really the question that we kept top of mind as we were planning the sessions, selecting the speakers, and really putting this day together for you. As you move through your day here at the summit, you'll find that we've provided handouts, action-focused learning objectives, and really tried to interweave all of this into the sessions and the speaker selections for the day. But the next step is really up to you. So the message that I want to give you before I introduce our keynote, and I'm so excited to do that, is that I want to urge you to consider what small actions each of you can take to create the sort of Cape Cod that you want to see in the future. Whether it's joining a board, going to town meeting, getting involved as a volunteer, even picking up litter. It's all these small incremental things, they collect together, and together we advance our community. Each of us has a role to play. So the key message that I want to convey to you is that the sense of opportunity and community, we can build it right here. We already have it in this room. It's here. It's not in a big city somewhere across the bridge. It's here. It's wherever you dig in and you decide to make the community your own. So that's the message I want to leave you with as I now turn to our amazing keynote speaker. I'm so excited to introduce him. Roy Heffernan, who is the former COO and an owner of the Life is Good brand. You may have heard of it. An apparel and accessories retailer and a lifestyle brand that actually has some roots right here on Cape Cod. Together with the company's founding brothers, Bert and John Jacobs, Roy helped found a unique philanthropic arm of the Life is Good company called the Life is Good Foundation, and it's dedicated to helping children who have experienced trauma. Roy will be sharing his message of optimism and positivity and why this mindset is integral in our professional and personal, and I would argue, community success. So with no further ado, I would like to introduce Roy Heffernan. Come on up.
So while Lauren's pulling up the slide presentation, if there are any pessimists in the room, you better run for the door. You know, I'm always impressed by companies and people that do a good job with listening to their customers, and in this case, it's you. And Lauren had made it very clear when I met with her, I don't know, a month or 2 ago in preparation, that you guys really wanted some takeaways, that speeches are nice, but let's make sure that when we leave here, there's something that stays with us and that maybe we can make a difference with. So to that end, I have focused a lot of what I have to say on that, and I hope there are some a few gems that you can take away. Anybody know what this is a picture of? You're a few yards from it. What is this? Cleveland Ledge. Yes, very good. So I'm going to start by giving you a takeaway relative to Cleveland Ledge. Are there any sailors in the room of any kind? Yeah, me too. I just have a tiny little Hobie cat, but here's your first takeaway if you're taking notes. If you sail and you go on Buzzards Bay and you go out toward Cleveland Ledge, and that was built by Grover Cleveland, hence its name, to mark the west end of the canal, then I want you to think about it very carefully in terms of timing, because for those of you who do sail in Buzzards Bay, what happens at about 5 or 6 o'clock? What happens to the wind? No sailors in Buzzards Bay. Yeah, it stops. So I was out there one day, and I was having a blast, and the wind was flying, and yeah, I don't know, it's probably about 4 or 5 miles from my house, and I'm out at Cleveland Ledge, and the wind stops. So make a long story short there, my wife calls the Coast Guard. Does he have a cell phone? No. Do you know where he went? No. So anyway, my takeaway is if you go sailing on Buzzards Bay, bring your cell phone, let people know where you're going, and be a little bit more prepared than I was. So also, moving on, how many, and this is kind of a crazy question for a group of young professionals, but how many grandparents do we have in the room? All right, not bad. We got a few. Okay, so another huge takeaway that I have, and I know you're probably not completely in control of this, but my takeaway for you is that I hope that you guys can become grandparents in your day. So this is Jack. He's 2.5 years old, and he's just a delight. And this is Carter. And as you can see, Carter has never missed a meal. And this is our third grandson, and this is Ben. So my takeaway for you is just do whatever you can in your lifetime to have grandchildren, because it's the greatest thing ever. And you guys know, because I saw some old farts over here raise your hand. So I have a question for you. And I've, in preparation for this, I asked a few people, have anybody ever asked you, like, do you have a hero? And they looked at me like, well, no. But I'm going to ask it here anyway. Has anyone asked you, like, who's your hero in your life? Yes or no? Kind of just give me a few. Yeah. So along my life, some people have said, well, who's your hero? And lots of times, people have their mother or their father or, someone who... I didn't really have a hero in my sights. And I was like, is there something wrong with me that I don't have a hero? And so I started thinking about that a little bit. And sometimes people can define hero as like, they saved your life. Like literally saved your life. Or someone who goes to war for you or whatever. And they truly deserve to be titled hero. But there's another, in my estimation, there's another, maybe not as emotionally grandiose as that, where people are heroes in your life. So recently, again, as I was preparing for this talk, a guy by the name of Steve Dodge, who was 73 years old, riding his bike in Florida, got hit by a car, and he's gone. And it was like, you got to be kidding me. I never told Steve what he meant to me. I never really shared with him that, indeed, Steve Dodge was one of my heroes. So who's Steve Dodge? Well, Steve started American Cable Systems back when cable was non-existent, and we were actually building the lines, the cable lines on the poles. And everything he touched turned to gold. So we had a wonderful experience as American Cable Systems employees, and Steve was our leader. So then he went on and he said, okay, now I see that, and he sold it for $1 gazillion to Continental Cablevision. And then he said, well, now the rules just changed and we can aggregate radio stations. So he started doing that, and that turned to gold. And then he said, well, they all need towers, so I'm going to start buying up all the towers. So then American Tower Company was born, and he made a gazillion dollars doing that. And then he went and started a real estate development company, and then he got hit by a car on a bike, and he's gone. Now, Steve, I hadn't talked to a lot of these people for a long, long time, and then because Steve got hit, we all got on to, chatting online about Steve, what he brought to the table. And it reminded me of the brilliance of Steve Dodge and why all these grown men got online and celebrated his life even though he was gone. So he had a philosophy for business that was as simple as can be, and it stayed with everybody that was on that email chain. The first thing is you take care of your customer. The second thing is you take care of each other. The third thing is you meet or exceed your financial obligations. And by the way, if you do 1 and 2, number 3 will happen, no problem. And number 4 was you have fun. And that's stuck with all of these guys who have gone on to other businesses, including me, forever. And it's pretty simple. And you say, well, thanks a lot, Roy. I could have figured that one out. It's true, but it's hard to live it. It's hard to live that with all the other noise that goes on in our lives. Taking care of your customer, really honoring and taking care of each other, meaning your employees, the people that are sitting next to you, the folks that are, going into battle with you every day. So, and that last one, having fun, it's a big piece of it. Life is Good's pretty good at it. We do have fun. But we don't just throw Frisbees all day. We actually run a business, too. This was the movie marquee in Beverly honoring Steve Dodge. Just gives you an idea of the kind of guy he was and what kind of impact he made. So the next thing that I want to do before I get into Life is Good, because I do want to share the Life is Good story, because I think that Bert and John did a terrific job in building the Life is Good culture, and I want you to hear about the integrated model, integrated between Life is Good for-profit and Life is Good Kids Foundation, the nonprofit. And so I'm going to spend time on that. But before I get there, I wanted to spend a little time on another, what I think is potentially an important set of takeaways for you. I was gifted a few years ago by Life is Good to have an executive coach. Anybody have an executive coach right now? Beautiful. I hope your experience is similar to mine. My executive coach changed my life. So part of what I'm going to say here is that if you can ever get your company to pay for your executive coach, say yes, fast and immediately. And if you have the funds, think about getting your own executive coach. And I want to share with you a little bit about my journey with my executive coach, because it did change who I am as an individual. And you all have, I think, an opportunity to do that as well. So the first day was really intense with my executive coach, and we were focused on my essence. And my essence is defined as my very best self. And there are 3 components: discovery, awareness, and choice. Discovery, awareness, and choice. So we discovered what Roy Heffernan's essence is. That's a pretty fun day. You focus on what you're great at. You focus on what makes you you. And by the way, we're all great. We're all great when we show up as our best self. And so you spend time defining that with real life situations, and you say, okay, now there's a thread going through there, and I can actually define and put words around what my best self looks like. And then once it's defined and you go through that discovery process, you go through an issue of awareness, and you work on your awareness of that, so that if I told you you could show up as your best self every single day, would you do it? No, thanks. I'll show up as Bad Roy. Of course you would. You'd say, yeah, count me in. I'm showing up as my best self. So the awareness, and then the final is choice. So making choices in your life so that you show up as your best self. Now, we're fallible. We're not always going to do that. But we can fight to get there. So at the end of that first day, my executive coach, who happens also to be an artist, and he's really visual, which I'm not sure I am, but I respect it, and I enjoy it. So he said, hey, you know, I just had a vision about what your essence is. And I said, really? He said, yeah. He said, have you ever heard of phosphorescence? How many know what phosphorescence is? Right, so Buzzards Bay in August, September, phosphorescence is really fun. You just wipe your arm in the sea, and you know, beautiful, beautiful lighting shows up behind your hand. Or if you see a boat, phosphorescence lights up behind that motor or that sailboat. So he said, what I see is you are the boat when you are in your essence, and you leave light behind you wherever you go. I said, wow. I'm pretty good. Look at all that light. But this is true of everybody. I mean, when we show up as our best self, we just radiate light in all good ways. Okay, guess what the second day focused on? Not my light. So the second day focuses on the opposite. When does Roy show up as not his best self, or as I call it, Bad Roy? I won't use that in referring to you. But yeah, so what does Bad Roy look like? So you spend a whole day going through actual examples of when you were a jerk. I didn't have any trouble coming up with them, by the way. And then what do? You discover, right? What's the second thing we do? Aware. And then what do? Right. So, if I spend time defining when Bad Roy shows up, and you can actually put triggers to that. Okay, so what's triggering me when Bad Roy shows up? So you become aware of it, and then you can get out in front of it, ideally, and then make choices to do what? To change the trajectory of your life so that Bad Roy doesn't show up. Okay? So, I was actually doing another speech one time, and how many have been to a conference where there's a really talented artist, and he's got a humongous dry erase board, and the artist is actually drawing what is being said? Has anyone ever seen that? Do you know what I'm talking about? They actually capture it. Instead of using words and notes, they capture it visually. So I wanted to share with you what Bad Roy looks like, because this guy captured it, and it was based on the fact that when Bad Roy shows up, I use my words to take the legs out from underneath people. This is what the guy drew. Are you kidding me? I took the legs out from underneath this poor guy. All right. So what's the takeaway? My takeaway is that there's a real strength and power in understanding, coming to understand what you look like, what you show up like when your essence is there and when your light is shining. There's a real power to that. And you can, with your awareness and your choice, you can actually choose to show up that way. A conscious choice. You can make decisions. I'll give you one example. One of my partners at Life is Good is a trigger of mine. Oh boy. So we go into partner meetings and I spend 10 hours sitting right next to the guy. So that's a challenge, right? So how can I make choices? Now these may sound trite and kind of stupid, but so that night, the night before, I get a good night's sleep. Why? Huh? Feel rested, and if I feel rested, then what? Yeah, I'm not like, I feel good. I'm not likely to get, I'm less susceptible. I'm less susceptible to my trigger, right? Okay, I don't drink coffee the morning of the meeting. Why? I got my trigger right here. Do I need coffee? No, it's probably a good idea not to have coffee, right? My point is that, oh, one more thing. I prepare. So I'm really on top of every agenda item. Why? If my trigger challenges me and I'm prepared, am I more or less likely to have bad Roy show up? Of course. So the bottom line there is that once I went through my executive coaching, the battles stopped between me and my trigger. They stopped. Takes two. Didn't matter what he did. I can't control him. Who can I control? That's it. So these things are real. They can help you. They can, and most importantly, when your essence shows up, you feel full. You feel great. You know, you are shining your light. And then people also all around you feel great. And the opposite is true. When bad Roy shows up, it's a mess. It's a frickin' mess. You know, you just don't want to see it. No, look at that. Let's get on to Life is Good. So I'm now not the COO. I'm not the Chief Operating Optimist of Life is Good because about 3 years ago, 3 of the 6 owners, I'm one of the owners, took a step back. 2008 was a tough time, if you remember, for everybody in business. How many of you remember 2008 and 2009? I mean, a lot of brands went out of business. So as the guy responsible for the finance of the organization, which was me, I, at a partner meeting, unannounced to anybody, it wasn't on the agenda, I said, I'm going to step down. And they went, what? Well, guess what? At the same time, 2 other partners did as well. And it was really important, too, because we were fairly well paid. And it was really hard for me to watch the financial success or lack thereof of Life is Good to be challenged and sit around the table as if everything's kind of fine. So I'm now an owner, and the 3 of us, we call ourselves the Skunks because we do skunk works, which is strategic project development. So we look at strategic projects. We just finished one on what omnichannel means to us at Life is Good and what the operations of Life is Good would do to maximize this concept of omnichannel. So that's an example of some of the things that we do to assist the company where full-time people don't have time to do that. So that's what I'm doing right now. I've been with the company for 18 years, and I'm Bert and John's first cousin. So Bert and John started the company in '94, and I remember Bert and John, because they're 10 years younger than me, like this. So this is Bert, and yeah, unbelievable. And this is Johnny. I will show you them later in a video so you can see what they look like now. But they're really amazing guys. They live and breathe and are authentic in every way, shape, and form. If you've ever, has anyone ever heard Bert or John speak? Yeah, how did they do? They're freaking amazing. They're really, really good. And they make a difference for people. So so Bert and John grew up in the same town that I did, and this gives you a glimpse of them. Now, Johnny's the artistic guy, you know. Well, so is Bert, but Johnny's like, and he's kind of different and weird. And if you look at this picture, I think you can probably see that he's been gnawing on lead paint here for a while. As a result, we have Johnny. So this is Bert on the top bunk, and he did question his mother, you know, over the years about, hey, you know, how about a few sheets on the bed, you know? But they did grow up in a house full of 6 children. They were the youngest 2, and their family had, as much dysfunction as any other family. And part of that dysfunction was a bad accident that their mom and dad got in at one time. And Al, who's their dad, he lost use of his arm and limped for the rest of his life and so on. And he became an alcoholic, and he was a fairly scary and challenging influence on the family. Let's put it that way. So it's not like they grew up in this utopian, household. I'm not sure one exists anyway, but but there was somebody in their life that was the foundation of everything that they have built and become as Life is Good. And you might guess that's their mother, Joan. So Joan is my dad's older sister, and Joan clearly to me is the most optimistic person I've ever met in my life. So much so that it was like, are you kidding me? But she was authentic too, and very authentic. So the 6 of them would come home from school, and they'd go through their challenges at school, whatever that might be. And Joan would change the energy in the room. Very, very clearly change the energy in the room by asking one question or a statement. Tell me something good that happened today. Again, pretty simple, Roy. Really? But what it taught Bert and John is that we can control our dispositions. And when you control your disposition, you become empowered. And when you choose to look at things in a positive vein, regardless of what's gone on in your life, that it can actually make an enormous difference in your life. And so we believe, all of us at Life is Good, and if you're a pessimist at Life is Good, you're not there long. You're just not happy. So out you go. But what we espouse is that approaching the world in an optimistic way is empowering. It allows us to show up with our essence. If you're a pessimist, I think that'd be a difficult thing to do. So the way we look at it is you got optimism, realism, and pessimism. And we're in this camp. Pessimism is corrosive. Realism lacks imagination. And optimism is boundless. So we choose that one. So Bert and John graduate from college. Bert went to Villanova. Johnny went to UMass. And they graduated and they said, okay, what can we do so we don't have to get a real job? So this is them hawking T-shirts, non-Life is Good T-shirts. Anybody know where this is? Huh? Close. Close. This is the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Southie, okay? And probably just before or just after this, they were being chased by the cops because they didn't have licenses to do this. But anyway, they did what they could. So then they buy a van, and they would fill that van right up to about here with T-shirts. And then they'd go on the road. And at night, they would sleep on top of the T-shirts. So, they'd be right up against and then when they sold the T-shirts down as they were on the road, they had a little more breathing room. So they'd go up and down the East Coast and go on to college campuses selling teas. Again, non-Life is Good, and because Life is Good didn't exist at that time. And so they would sell whatever teas they could, and then they would chase women, and they weren't good at either one of them. So in the meantime, they're driving their van up and down, lots of windshield time. And so they're chatting about, well, what about our brand? What can we do as a brand? We know Nike and we know some other brands that we're respectful of, but they don't really do what we're talking about. What we're talking about is based on what? Yes, very good. Joan brought optimism, and they held on to optimism. And so they would look at all of these. We hear a lot about fake news. Well, let's not go there. But what we're talking about here is just negative news. And how many times do you watch the news and you just say, ay, 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 ay. You just say, let's turn this off. Well, Bert and John were so sick of the negative news out there that it drove them to Johnny drawing the original Jake. And they were, their last name's Jacob, so they were called Jake all their lives, right? So this is Jake, and that's nice. So Life is Good under here used to say just draw, D-R-A-W. It's hard for a Bostonian to say draw. You want to say drawer or something. But this used to say draw. What's wrong with the business plan with a Jake and then draw underneath it? First of all, what does Jake look like? What does he look like? What kind of hat does he have on? So what does he look like? French what? Artist. He looks like an artist, doesn't he? Jeez. So if you have a guy who looks somewhat like an artist and draw underneath it, who are you selling those T-shirts to? Yeah, and what's a adjective that lots of times comes in front of artist? Starving. How's that business plan? Not a good one. So they came back and they threw a keg party at their apartment, and they came up with Life is Good, which was one of the things that one of their drunk friends came up with. And so they married these two together, and off it went. Off it went. So they went to Cambridge, and they went to this, that's Johnny, and they went to a fair on the street, and they sold their first 48 T-shirts in 40 minutes. Now, believe me, they weren't selling their other T-shirts at that rate, so they knew they had something very special. And it was extremely diverse with regard to what kind of people were buying the shirts, which was also important to them. So they didn't know the first thing about business, so they said, uh-oh, we got something really powerful here, now what do we do? So one thing they did, and really smart, is they listened to their customers or their potential customers. So they sold some teas down through a retailer on the Cape. First, huh? Yeah. Oh, wow, did you sell the first Life is Good teas? I love you. So she sold through them immediately, and she said, hey, my shop is right next to an ice cream store. Does Jake eat ice cream? And Bert said, he does now. So for all of you trying to build a business, what is so exciting about that? Who is building that business? Right? The customer is helping Bert and John, not helping, driving the business. So what's better than that, than your customer driving your business? So she says, well, that really sold well, and my sister-in-law now has a place, and she opened up in Maine, and she happens to be next to a bike path. Oh, okay, so Jake also rides a bike. And this is, I'm not kidding you, this is how our business grew. And it grew with vigor, and it grew with enthusiasm, and obviously they were listening to, their customer base. And then some other non-Jake things came up, and we started to weave in some other looks, and the business started to grow. Bert recalls the first time they hit $1 million, they thought they were like ready for retirement. And probably none of it went in their pocket, but that's okay. They felt great about it, and this little company started to get some traction. Okay, so what does all of this have to do with an integrated model? Because that's what I'm here really to kind of talk to you about, other than the fun story behind Life is Good. So some things started to happen relative to our brand early on. And one of them was Nick and Alex. And Nick and Alex wrote a letter to Bert and John, and it's the cutest letter and most powerful letter in the whole wide world. And they were 10 years old when they wrote it. One of them wrote it. And as you might be able to see, Nick here was born without a leg, and Alex was born blind and had some other issues. And this letter, and you can see it if you want to in the Life is Good book, and we divide our book up into the Life is Good superpowers, and I'll show you those in a minute. But this one was under the chapter Gratitude. And what came out of this, Bert and John didn't really know what to do with it, but they knew that Life is Good was here to do something other than just make money. And by the way, we love making money. We're screaming capitalists. And then what do you do with your money is the question. And I love what Bert and John have set up as what we do with our money, because we do good things with it, and we all have those decisions to make. But we want to make a lot of money. So what these guys taught us, little Alex and Nick, and they close by saying, I hope you enjoy your brother like I enjoy mine. That's what Nick wrote. So there are lots of things, well, maybe not too many, but there are some things that we all don't like to do in our world, yes? There's some things like, oh, geez, I don't want to do that. Like, my wife's back here. I don't really like to go food shopping. I'm like terrible at it, too. I go in, I don't know where anything is, and it takes me way longer. But what these guys taught us was the concept of get to. I don't have to go food shopping. I get to go food shopping. I have legs that I can walk on. I have a plethora of food waiting for me right here. I have the opportunities financially to buy food, which many, many people obviously in this world don't have. So this is a takeaway. And, you know, what if we were to show up as our best selves with this concept of get to, as opposed to I have to? Think about that. I know it fits into your life. So another thing happened too, right about at the same time. An 11-year-old by the name of Lindsay Began got diagnosed with terminal cancer, and she was going to be dead in less than a year. And that was her diagnosis. And so a writer in the Boston Globe asked her, Lindsay, do you understand your diagnosis? And she said, yes. I've been told I'm going to die in less than a year. He said, then what's with the Life is Good beanie? And you know what this 11-year-old said? Before I got sick, I took my life for granted. Now I cherish every day. An 11-year-old. So, once again, and by the way, she came an ambassador at Children's Hospital. She wrote to Bert and John, and they sent her like 50 hats. And she would go and be the ambassador to every one of the other sick children with the Life is Good hat. So once again, it was like, oh, wow, you know, we're more than just a T-shirt company here. What are we supposed to do with this? We are connecting emotionally with people in very real ways. What do we do with it? So I'm sure you can understand the one thing, after all this is coming to be, the one thing you probably would decide to do is go up to Maine and run a pumpkin festival. So has anyone been to Maine in like October? Yeah, well, it's not like, you know, Key West. So she shows up 11 months pregnant with a beach ball on her belly. You got Mr. Positive Man here, and you got this guy who looks like he's certifiable. But all these folks start showing up with pickup trucks full of pumpkins. And why did we do that? Well, it was the first effort in a relatively young and small company to raise money doing something that brings community together. So I don't know what we raised, something like $50,000, which at the time was a lot of money for us. And we began to leverage Life is Good's for-profit to grow the nonprofit. But the Life is Good Kids Foundation didn't exist yet. Well, as these pumpkin events started to take real, footing, we had to, or we chose to hire a vice president of logistics, and here he is. And then we went on to the Boston Common, and we broke the Guinness Book of World Records for the most lit pumpkins at one time. And that was fun. It was like 31,000 pumpkins or something. Was anybody there? Well, Claire was there, my wife, yeah. It was spectacular. It was really a spectacular night, day and night. And we raised, I think we raised over $500,000 at that, which was great because we were ramping up and starting to funnel that money in very meaningful ways, and we funneled it into the Life is Good Kids Foundation. And the foundation is not a foundation where money comes in and then we decide where to dish out the money. That's not what it is. It's a service foundation, meaning we deliver service as a result of its mission. And the service is to train child care and child life providers, teachers, in understanding and recognizing trauma in children, and then utilizing sophisticated play therapy to bring them back to being a kid again, to being joyful, and to being free, to live their little lives. So that's what we have set out to do. We've got an amazing guy by the name of Steve Gross, who you can see online. He's a fantastic speaker, but moreover, he really understands trauma. He understands trauma in children, and we do something about it. So we've done a lot of work actually on the Cape, and we'll continue to with trainings, so that what we're focused on now is systemic change. So rather than onesie here of kindergarten teacher or something that becomes a playmaker, which is what you become when you graduate from our training, we believe that it's much more powerful if we do it systemically. So we're starting at the top with schools and with after-school programs and other things. And one of your board members is a playmaker or will be soon. So anyway, that's what we do. Here's me in Haiti, where we went, invited, by the way. We don't go when we're not invited. Haiti invited us down there to train their child care providers in the 10 cities after the 2010 earthquake. And we've been there ever since. Unlike a lot of other 501c3s that have gone away from Haiti now that the money has stopped flowing and the cameras are off, we have 12 Haitians who are on our staff full-time and are training fellow teachers all around Port-au-Prince and the greater Haiti area. So we're really excited about that. I was down there again. This is an old picture. You can see I kind of look young. But I was down there a few months ago, and it's they still need us desperately. So that's one piece of what we do. This is child life at one of the hospitals. This child is on an IV, and different challenges when they're not mobile, but the same play therapy and the skills that we bring are just as important. Am I running too long? Because I really want to give you a chance for questions. Do we still have the mics up? Yeah. Okay. So we give 10% of our net profits to the Life is Good Kids Foundation every year, no matter what. There's no discussion about it. There's no, well, we really have to invest over here instead of, no. No, it goes to the Kids Foundation, and it's a critical element that allows them to do their work. So, and that's not going to change unless we can do 15 or 20 or more, but that's not going to change because that's what we believe in and that's what we bring to the table. I'm going to stop there because I think I only have 5 minutes, and I think there's some richness in taking a question or two. There are mics here, and if someone has a question of anything I said or you don't agree with what I said or whatever, come up to the mic because it's really important for people to hear your question. So get up and go to the mics. And if, get up. And if I don't see you, oh, there's one. Good, 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 good. Is that mic on? Thank you.
Let's see. Can you hear me?
Great.
Really interesting hearing your talk, and it's about attitude, optimism specifically. We're in a climate today where incivility seems to rule the world, and I'm not just talking politics, I'm talking in general. What can we do, and what are you all doing to address that and sort of improve our society.
Thank you very much. Here's what we're doing.
Today's top story, the market went down, and then it went up. What does this mean for you? I have no idea. Brace yourself for some nasty weather, as menacing shapes that can only be described as clouds roll into the region. Later, we'll unpack why one politician didn't like another politician's Instagram post. Yogurt is now being made with coconut milk. Is your child safe? This has officially gotten out of control. Bad news has always been around, but now we can't seem to turn it off. Or maybe we can. 25 years ago, we started a company called Life is Good to counter the negative news. Focusing on positive energy really started with our mom, Joan. Every night at the dinner table, she looked around at her 6 kids and made one simple request. Tell me something good that happened today. And to celebrate this big milestone, we're going to take a page from Joan's book and change the national conversation. To help us all focus more on the good and spread the power of optimism. We're on a mission to get 1 million people to share something good, and we need your help. For every something good we receive, we're donating $1 to the Life is Good Kids Foundation to help kids in need. Hey, where are you guys off to?
Share something good.
They're ready. We're ready. You ready? Use the hashtag and share something good right now. Help us raise money for kids in need and commit to a little more optimism every day. Tell us something good.
I don't know that that's a silver bullet, man, but we're doing stuff. We're doing stuff. By the way, just as a side note, and I'm not a big one for dropping names, but this one's kind of fun. Bert and John recently got invited out to Ringo Starr's birthday party because we saw him wearing some Life is Good gear. And so we reached out to him, and he's going to do a video about Tell Me Something Good. So you'll see, if you go online, maybe in the next week or two, you'll see Ringo sharing what he thinks is something good. And, you know, if you get enough of this wave started, and maybe everybody in this room goes on and shares something good on the Life is Good effort, $1 will go to the Kids Foundation for everyone that you do. And so instead of throwing a big 25th anniversary party where we all, you know, do whatever clown stuff we would do, we decided to spend our money on this, trying to change the dialogue, because you're right, it's a pretty wild dialogue out there right now, or can be. But we can do something about that every time we decide to show up as our best self. Anybody else yeah, I see one more, I see two more. Can we take both of these two, Lauren, and then call it a day? Okay, good, thank you.
If anyone asks me something good that happened today, I will definitely say this talk. So thank you so much, Roy. This is awesome. Really, really good. On Cape Cod, there are tons of nonprofits already doing great work. And you guys started your own nonprofit, doing amazing work. What advice would you give to a nonprofit that wants to try to find a business to partner with the way you partner with your nonprofit?
Yeah. It changes the dynamic entirely when you have a for-profit company that is dedicated to helping you do your work as a nonprofit. What advice would I give? Man. Well, part of the advice would be that millennials and Generation Z, every study you read about them, you know, those young whippersnappers, every study you read about them says that they care intimately about doing business with companies that give back. So it's good business, you know, and so you might gather some energy around that and some data around that would assist a company that aligns nicely with you. I mean, that's the beauty of, you know, the integrated model, is that we are one, messaging-wise. And by the way, Life is Good and Life is Good Kids Foundation, we battle a lot because there are real issues with regard to positioning and whatever. But the battles are all for the benefit of the kids, so they're good and they're healthy. So if you ever got a nonprofit to be successful, convincing, if you will, and selling the power of an integrated model with a new company, it won't be without challenge and pain, but it'll be everything worth it. And I think you could make a case that companies that are not authentic with this going forward will be at a disadvantage. I don't know how much helpful that answer is, but thanks.
Hi, Roy. I was really interested to hear about Bad Roy. I think I know a distant relative of his, Bad Roy. And I was curious how he's doing, and does he serve any positive role in your life? I'm curious if he helps at all.
Yeah. I'm going to give the mic to my wife, and he shows up far less often. I also have, I have two mantras in life now. I have a central mantra in my life, which is leave every communication that I have, whether it's verbal, written, or whatever, with the person feeling bigger, not smaller. That's my new mantra in life. Now, I will tell you that I fall off that wagon a lot. But my backup mantra is equally important. And this is where awareness comes in. So even before Bad Roy comes out of my mouth, I'm aware of it. And you say, well, why didn't you catch yourself? I am fallible. And so the awareness side is really important because then I get to do my redo. And that's my second mantra in my life, where I could say, I really don't like where this conversation's going right now. Can I start over? And because I'm on my train right before that, acting like a jerk, you say, yes, please start over. And when I come back and start over that conversation, I come back in a mentoring space, in a changed environment internally for me. My tone changes. My essence starts to come back because why? I was just successful in turning that train around. That train could have run over a lot of people, and it didn't. I might have made a mistake, but I rebounded quickly. And yeah, Bad Roy plays an important role, and it's part of me, and it always will be, because I am who I am. But I can channel it, and I can feel great when I'm successful beating back Bad Roy, even if he shows his ugly head a little bit. Yeah, don't say anything about that ugly head. I'm out of time. I loved being with you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Thanks, everybody.